Welcome everybody to this session. There's just a little bit of I'm sure you've heard this a couple of times already today, but I need to read something out before we start this session, if that's okay. And it's reaffirming the college's safeguarding measures. So that's what I'm doing. All participatory sessions relating to online open day will be recorded for upload to the web, archive purposes, and to ensure best practice for future recruitment events run by the college. By joining this session, you give consent for the RNCM to record and store your participation. If you do not wish to be an active participant, please keep your camera and microphone switched off. Whichever one you want to do, if you want to switch your camera on, absolutely fine. If you want to stay off camera, that's also fine. What else do I need to tell you? I just need to make sure that you're all definitely able to hear my voice. Just give me a nod. Nadia's nodding. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's great. Zoe's giving me the thumbs up. Wonderful. That's great. So we've got. Thank you, Sam. We've got a little PowerPoint to tell you a little bit of information about RNCM brass band activities. Introduce you to some of the staff. I've also got some other people here from the college to answer any questions that you might have. Delighted that as senior Cornet tutor, is that correct, Roger? Is Roger Webster has joined us as well. No, I think that is your title. But Roger's also got some other roles in college that he fulfills, and there's somebody else just waiting there. Let me let them in. Andrew McMillan. So Roger's here to answer questions. I know we've got some Cornet players, but I've also got some student ambassadors with us here from the college. Some names you might recognise. Dan Thomas is here in the woods there. Give us a wave, Dan. There's Dan. Zoe Wright. Give us a wave, Zoe. There she is. And Tom Smith. Dan's a Euphonium player. Zoe Wright plays. Zoe plays for Hammonds as a horn player. And Tom there is a Cornet student. And so they'll be able to answer questions perhaps even better than I can. So I think we'll make a start. I'll try and keep an eye on people coming in and out of the session, but if I share my screen, can everybody see? There we go. Can everybody see the RNCM brass band activities and teaching? I'm glad that you can. Excellent. Okay, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear this. So just give me a nod if you can hear audio as well. Okay, so that was the opening section of of the music for Elizabethan Court by arranged by Alga Howarth, performed by the band. I think that was in 2017. That might have been Zoe's first year. That's right, wasn't it? I think that was right. Just a little bit of information about the band. Established during the 1990s by a brass innovator, Howard Snell, the RNCM Brass Band has always been a flagship ensemble of the institution. So in terms of activity and its kind of status within the four walls, the personnel and the activities chosen alongside the orchestras and programmed alongside the orchestras and the wind ensembles and all that kind of thing. Geographically, the RNCM is ideally placed for brass band students, and it can boast a teaching staff that includes Professor Roger Webster, Richard Marshall, Owen Farr, Stephen Mead, and some other guy there. 2014, the college appointed, it's very important for us, Professor James Gourlay and Professor David King as international chairs in brass band studies, and they both work with the band on a biannual basis. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a little while. Other recent guests include Nicholas Childs, Philip McCann, Edward Gregson, Kathleen Gasbeau, Swiss Cornet star, was a guest soloist with the band in January, and actually she performed Thierry Dularoyel's brand new cornet concerto, and he came to join us for the day of the performance as well. It's great for him to be able to work with the band. If you don't recognise the name of that composer, you might know that his piece Fraternity, which is very, very popular. The teaching staff encourages students to become members of bands outside of the college. Very important part of what we do. And the RNCM benefits greatly from partnerships with some of the UK's leading brass bands. Again, I'm going to talk about a little bit more about that in a little while. But needless to say that being in Manchester, being ideally placed, as I said above, there are lots of opportunities for outside banding. I think I'll get some of the students to tell you about that rather than me. RNCM currently has members of Black Dyke, Grindthorpe, Brighouse and the Fairy Bands and Hammonds, of course, within its ranks. Sorry, Zoe. There's also good international representation from countries including USA, China, Singapore, Hong Kong and Australia. And I guess the importance of that is the kind of cultural element that brings in different kind of, if you like, brass playing personalities. It's quite interesting in classes. The RNCM aims to ensure brass band students receive the highest levels of conservatory education through the repertoire they experience, the artists they work with, and generally sound approach to work ethic. That might sound like by the way, if you hear a bit of noise in the background, it sounds like my children have just arrived home, so the house might get a bit noisier than it was just a moment ago. It's very important. Obviously, it might sound obvious, but that idea of work ethic is very important to us. The college endeavours for students to complete their studies at RNCM with a broad-based education. We touched on this a little bit earlier on. Very important that you might enter the building as brass band students. We don't necessarily want you to leave the building with that kind of state of mind. It's very important that you're broadly knowledged, broadly skilled and broadly experienced. So you're not only live with a qualification, but also a wide range of skills covering teaching, conducting, arranging, and also as a confident, clear communicator. RNCM Brass Band feature in the annual Brass Band Festival, which is the only place to see all of Britain's top brass bands in a non-competitive environment. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then I've been doing this job as senior tutor in brass bands since 2016. So just quickly, in case anybody's in any doubt about the teaching staff for the Cornets, we have Roger, as I've already talked about, and Richard Marshall, Principal Cornet from Black Dyke. The tenor horns all work with Owen Farr, who absolutely needs no introduction whatsoever. And the Euphonium and baritone students work with Professor Stephen Mead, who's the senior tutor in Euphonium at the college, and myself, who we kind of share the Euphonium baritone teaching between us. As I already mentioned, the international chairs in brass bands, Dr. James Gourlay and Professor King, they visit twice a year to undertake a kind of few different roles, really. Tom, can you hear me, Tom?
Yes.
Excellent. Just want to talk about when David King's in the building. Tell us what he kind of gets up to. I mean, you've had some lessons with him while he's been around as well. Perhaps you can give us a bit of insight into kind of David's methods of working and how you've experienced that.
Yeah, of course. So when Dave comes to the college, which I think he is once or twice a year, um, he comes and he does at least one, if not two, sessions with the current RNCM brass band, who I think leading up to a concert, say comes in September. I think there'll be a concert in October. So he coaches the band for one or two rehearsals, and he gets a lot of work done during that time. And he also does master classes and lessons during that time. And it's Dave's job to kind of fit in as many students as possible to get lessons and slots in the masterclass. And I've had both the masterclass, which was in my first year, and a lesson with him as well, which was earlier this year. And both were incredibly helpful. The advice he gives is completely like unique. I think if you can get a lesson with him, which you will do if you come here, it's a really important thing to be able to do that. It's a very rare opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's a great experience, and I've learnt a lot from the man myself. And our other international chair in brass bands, based in Pittsburgh now, Dr. James Gourlay is not an American, as actually is a Scotsman, as you can see, a tuba player, but a fantastic musician, fantastic conductor. Dan, I remember you playing in the band with James Gourlay earlier this year. I think they were working on Ballet for Band, weren't you?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we had a week of rehearsals with James, and then we did a concert at the end of it. We did ballet for band and some film music, I believe, by Eric Korngold as well. We did,
That's it. Yeah.
which was good fun. Yeah, working with James is awesome. And the cool thing about James is that he's not just, as you said, an amazing conductor, amazing player, but he's also very business minded as well. So while he's over, the college took advantage of that, and he gave a 2 hour sort of lecture on how he runs his business of River City Brass in America. So the students not only got good musical grounding as well, but they also got a bit of an insight in how a professional outfit runs and works as well, which we found quite eye-opening, really.
Yeah, so importantly, we're utilising these visiting guests to their full potential. I mean, in real terms, we only get quite a brief time with them, but there's no doubt about it. We do work them hard while they're here,
We do, yeah.
and it really is a great opportunity to work with both these people. Oh, and while Dan was talking, I was supposed to show you these photographs. But I forgot about it. There's James working with the band. Luke Pallister and Principal Cornet there now plays for Crimethorpe. And we've had some other guests as well. Thomas Rudy is our international visiting tutor in Euphonium, and a great teacher. I know Dan had a lesson with him while he was over. And then last December, Philip McCann worked with the band towards a Christmas concert. Was it last December or the December before? I can't remember. But it's great to have Philip come and work with the band as well. A real great insight into the way he works with these bands. So I'll just stop the share for a second. Look, we've got not so many people that we can't just rather than type the questions into the chat. If people do have specific questions. I've kind of zoomed through a lot of information there, but I think, to be honest, if you're here, you're probably the type of person that's done your homework already. So a lot of that information, like about the teaching staff, and you probably know all about David King and James Gourlay already. So I wanted to say it, but I didn't want to spend too much time. What I really want to do is answer the questions that you may have. Would anybody like to ask anything? Silence. Craig, I know you had a question. Do you want to ask your question? Or are you going to go shy on us? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Craig. I'll ask Roger your question, if that's all right. So if I can bring Roger Webster in. So
I'm
Craig
back.
was asking. I think it was. I think I'm right in thinking it was Craig. If I've got the wrong person, then I apologise. Craig was asking, could he audition, or could someone audition on soprano cornet, and how would the studies develop from the audition, presuming they were successful?
Yeah, it's not unusual that someone. A good question anyway, Craig. Wherever you are hiding, it's a good question because people have in the past auditioned on soprano cornet. One got by without anyone knowing really. He auditioned on soprano cornet, did the first couple of months on soprano, then had a meeting with the head of wind, brass and percussion at that time, and he said, "Oh no, you can't come in on first study soprano," but he already had done. I think the bottom line is, yes, you can do your audition on soprano. You would be expected, if you came into college on cornet, to play B-flat cornet for a lot of the time. There's nothing to stop you at all in exams end of the year. Your scales, for instance, have to be done on a B-flat. There's nothing to stop you having your lessons on your E-flat and doing the majority, if not all, of your recital on an E-flat soprano, and even playing in college band on the E-flat. But I think for your own personal development, you'd be encouraged to play some B-flat. And also, if you're interested, again, we never force it on you, but we open doors. We'd like to see it that way. You'd be encouraged to play on trumpet in the various keys. And if you're an E-flat player, then the trumpet transition would be pretty straightforward. Because a lot of trumpet players don't like playing E-flat. So yes, you can do your audition. Back to the question. Yes, you can do your audition on E-flat. We'd encourage you then to do a mix. And if you haven't got a B-flat cornet, then college do have some, and we have access to instruments for you. So I know students do get to use my instruments, don't they, Tom? And sometimes I get some back.
Oh, well, that's always nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
That sounds like Tom's got one of yours.
Yeah.
He has, yes.
Oh, right,
Tom's
okay.
got a piccolo, but I think Jamie Smith still got some of my instruments. And Jamie left a few years ago. Yeah, that's life. Hope that helps with the question.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic answer. And by the way, if you don't want to ask in person, if you'd rather write in the chat, then please do so. No problem with that. Out of interest, I mean, I do recognise a few people, but can I just ask who have we got here? So cornet players. I don't know if you can. Yeah. So Ellie's a cornet player. Nadia, I know you're a cornet player. Matt, are you scratching your nose, or was that? You are a cornet player. Okay, right. Okay. Fair enough.
Even cornet players scratch the nose. Leave it.
Yes. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Tenor horn players. I know Anna, you're a euphonium player, aren't you? Yes. Andrew, you're a tenor horn player. So Sam, Craig, I think I'm right in saying he's a cornet player. Jude, I'm not sure. Jude, you tenor horn or euphonium?
Yeah.
Euphonium. I think that is absolutely fair enough. Good stuff. Well, Zoe Wright is a tenor horn student at the college. Third year, Zoe?
Yeah, just finishing my third year, going into my fourth year in September.
Going into fourth and final year in September. So I know you. Everyone's been you've been spoken to about chamber music opportunities, but I don't know whether any of the you've heard it from any of the students. So Zoe, have you been involved in chamber music while you've been in college?
Yeah, I have. Nothing that has kind of been taken massively seriously. In my first and second year, I was actually a part of a tenor horn quartet, and we were very contemporary. We did not any kind of standard repertoire. We did like the Wii theme tune music and some other pieces. We played, what's it called? We played a piece backwards and all sorts. A bit different. It was inspired by Nat, who was just finishing his fourth year. And then I was a part of a quartet with Laura Conway, Adam Neild, and I can't remember who played euphonium.
It doesn't matter at this point.
Doesn't matter at this point. Yeah, I've been involved within another quartet as well, standard kind of brass quartet, as well as I think the first ever tenor horn quartet that existed for
Yeah,
a
and
short period of
the
time.
good thing about your tenor horn quartet, like Rob Buckland was saying earlier on, a lot of the chamber music is student driven, student
Yeah,
initiative, and there's no doubt about it. Your tenor horn quartet did some very creative things, very
yeah,
innovative things. The performance that was out of the box, and of course that is encouraged. In fact, it was a very. I
yeah,
remember you coming and playing a performance in one of David King's masterclasses,
yeah.
and I'm not entirely sure he knew what to make of it.
No, I don't
But
think he did either.
but it was very creative, and,
Mm.
and he definitely enjoyed it. There's no doubt about it. What would you say the benefits? So I'm trying to put you on the spot. What are the benefits of being involved in chamber music? What do you reckon?
I think being in a chamber music group is really important to, I think, working closely with people. Obviously, within playing with a brass band, you're playing an ensemble with 20 odd people. But when you're working in a quartet, it's much more. You have to be very focused on each other being together, communicating. Obviously, the discussion of musical styles as well as phrasings, and obviously, when you're in such a small group, you have to kind of negotiate that, because some person might say, oh, I think we should do it this way, and someone else saying, no, I think we should do it this way. And obviously sometimes there's the negotiation of, oh, you can't play that very well, you need to practice that, as well. That has to happen sometimes. But I think it's a really important thing to kind of work closely with people, and you learn from each other in such a tight kind of workforce.
And yeah, and I agree. And everything you've just said, of course, is everything you need to be an even better bandsman. Everything you learn in chamber music, in terms of blend of sound, communication, homogeneous approach to phrasing and style, all of that kind of thing. It comes through in your banding, doesn't it? So, well, not
Absolutely.
just banding, any kind of music making. It's great for intonation. So, I personally, and I'm definitely not the only member of staff, really encourage and enjoy the students being part of the chamber music department, and I think it's good that it exists in such a high-profile way within the college. Excuse me, Dan, are you there? Dan, I just wonder if you could just talk a little bit. You're on mute, mate. Yeah, talk a little bit about the festival in January, because that's something you've been a big part of several times now. So,
Yeah, sure.
in case people don't know, Dan is just finishing his masters at the college, and he's an incredibly good euphonium player. He plays principal euphonium with Black Dykes. That's not a bad position to be in, is it? And so, Dave, you can just tell us a little bit about that festival, and I'll mute myself while.
Yeah, the festival is certainly sort of probably one of the highlights of my year anyway, in terms of just like it's a great festival to be at, even if you're not a student. But as a student, it's particularly cool that your institution can host all these amazing bands, all these amazing concerts, and particularly as well, especially when the RNCM band does its own spot. And usually, James Gourlay will do that. I've played as guest soloist in that a few times, and played with my band Black Dyke as well. So it's quite a busy week, and that's the cool thing about it. If you manage to get in a band up north, it's a play-packed week. It's absolutely brilliant. And college, will be sympathetic to you, and they'll organise things, to make it work, because they want to see you playing in all these cool events. And it's just cool to have all this stuff on your doorstep. You're going to be living in Manchester. You get sort of carte blanche of the place just for the whole week, really, to go and listen to your favourite bands, your favourite pieces. Yeah, it's wonderful. Really good fun.
Good, thanks, Dan. Sorry, forgot I was on mute. And then in a second, I'm going to ask Tom to talk about something else. But in a second, again, I'm going to open it up for questions. So if anybody has any particular questions, please be brave enough to ask anything you like. Okay, and Roger's here to answer. I know there's a few Cornet players here, so if you want to know anything about Cornet activities. He literally is the man, so please ask away. But while you're thinking about that, Tom, just talk to us a little bit about brass students' involvement in bands outside of college. I mean, because there's a lot of opportunity around this area, aren't there?
Definitely. I think when I was choosing where to go, one thing I took into consideration quite heavily is that well, my three choices were Birmingham, Welsh, and Northern. Welsh, I felt that there was basically Corey and Tredegar, and like a few others, obviously. Birmingham, again, is just not as many. It can't even compare to how many bands there are about in Manchester. I mean, before I came up to college, I played for a second section band, which I've been playing for since the age of 9. And by March last year, I played with 2 kind of low championship section bands and worked my way up to get to Grimethorpe band, which did lots for me. And that was through college. That was through Roger, who kind of put my name forward. And again, I then moved more recently to another band, Pemberton Old, where I played principal cornet for about 5 months. And just this week, I'm now with Fairies. And like it just kind of, it shows that it proves that there's so many different bands and so many different opportunities.
And when Tom, sorry to when Tom says he's with Fairies, he's just been appointed as the principal cornet of Fairies. That's a bigger thing than you're letting on. So well done for that, Tom. But don't worry about telling people. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Go on, mate.
So yeah, it there's loads of opportunities, and like that doesn't even cover, like, I've depped with so many more bands than that, and that opens you up to lots of different people, and like you network with everyone. Like this time last year, I didn't even know half the amount of people in banding that I know now, and that is just through kind of playing for other bands, helping bands out, through college as well, through kind of getting your name heard, through exposure. You know, it's all really, really good stuff, and I feel like the Royal Northern is like the best place for that, especially as a bander. 100%.
Well said, Tom. Very good. And what Tom's really talking about there, I suppose, is environment. You put yourself not only in the environment of the college, which is obviously very, very important, but the environment of geographically as well. And you do expose yourself to opportunities that you simply might not get elsewhere. Right. Are there any specific questions, either for myself or directly to the students, or definitely for Roger? Anybody got anything you want to ask? Ellie, do you want to just unmute yourself and ask? Is that okay to do?
Yeah. Earlier in the one at 11:30, I can't remember if it was you or the other head of brass at school who said that the brass will get like the opportunity to sort of play on more historical instruments like the natural trumpet and things. Is that opportunity offered to the brass band as like more like instruments? So like for the cornet players, can they still learn the natural trumpet?
Absolutely. I mean, Roger, I don't know if you have an insight into that.
Yeah, all students have access to anything they want, really, from natural trumpets to actually the cornet. If you want, the little wooden and leather instrument. Basically, if there's something musical that you fancy doing, college will try to facilitate that. And if they don't, speak to your tutors, and they'll bang on doors until someone allows you. You've got to remember that when you're at college, you're not there to basically be given a role to do and accept it. You're there to sort of bang on doors and say, I'm paying a lot of money to be here. It's my right to do these things. And the tutors will definitely try to make the administrators' jobs as difficult as possible by demanding that you get access to anything that you want. And we encourage that. The more you experience all different types of, like you say, the historical instruments, etc., the more you'll be able to make an informed decision on really the direction you want to go. We get people coming in still to teach these instruments, so yeah, definitely is the answer. You've got as much access to any. The course is the same. The fact that you play a brass band instrument doesn't mean anything at all. Going in on a tenor horn or a euphonium or a cornet doesn't make any difference. You're still doing the same course and have the same access to everything as a trumpet player, a classical trombone player, or anything else.
Can I just chip in there and say that I mean, I'm a tenor horn student, and this year I've managed to have percussion lessons as part of my doubling instrument hours. So I mean, and I could have picked to do piano or strings or vocals that some of the other tenor horn students picked. So don't just think that you're going to come to college and just get lessons on your own instrument, there are opportunities to have a go at anything.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Dad. Go on.
Sorry, no.
Go on.
Just tack on quickly. Before I came to college, I was very much, a brass band euphonium player. That was my bag. And since I've come to college, I've played quite a lot of bass trombone as well, and I've done double bell euphonium as well. So it's all just the doors just open. I've played bass trombone with the RNCM big band and the Halle brass section at college, as well as playing the euphonium. And with no extra sort of fees at all, I've managed to have bass trombone lessons on top of the normal stuff I'm doing with euphonium. So it is sort of like a blank canvas. You can literally do what you want, and there's options to be assessed on those if you do show particular sort of skill for those instruments as well. So it is very flexible.
So there's two things that come out of that. Is that one? It's kind of the one of the ethoses, if that's a plural, of the college. In that we want you to shape your educative experience. We want you to be as broadly skilled as possible. Like I said that right at the beginning. When we push you out of the door, it's actually vital to you and very important to us that you're as I don't know whether the right word is as employable as possible, but as broadly skilled as possible. So you can so you're prepared to take the opportunities that that are presented to you in the future. But also, like anything in life, you get out of it what you put in. Oh, Jude Rowland, hang on a minute, he's just fallen out. Let me just put him back in. There we go. Whatever you want to put into it, that's what you can take out. And so opportunities, just like Ellie's just been asking about, if they come from initiative from the student, that's great, and we'll do everything in our power to make sure it works, and the facility is definitely there. So that was a long answer, Ellie, but yeah, I think it was the one. I think it was the one you wanted. Any other questions? Anything that's springing to mind? Nadia.
Did you say that Cornet students would kind of get the opportunity to do some trumpet stuff as well? Would that be kind of like? You get to kind of choose, or is it like set hours a week for a separate instrument?
No, I think it's twofold that Cornet students are encouraged but not forced to play some trumpet. You're fully entitled to go along to any other class, so you can go to trumpet classes at the same time without even playing trumpet. You can go along, sit at the back and just listen if you wish. You can take a trumpet and participate. You can go to tuba classes. You can do anything you want, really. But we do encourage people to go to trumpet. If you've got a trumpet or you borrow a trumpet, we would then try and arrange taster lessons with someone. So you'd have a couple of sessions with different teachers. But then you can change your hours from, if you come in as a cornet player, by year 2, you can, it's not a re-audition, it's just sort of an end of year assessment, and go transfer over to trumpet and still be part of the college band, still come for some cornet lessons, and you can split it, and they'll do a split how you want your hours, really, so that your total hours and your, if you like, second study instrument can be divided up into trumpet and cornet how you see fit, or what best works for you. So yes, you'd be encouraged to, and you'd be assisted all through that, and it wouldn't really affect anything you do outside band in cornet or even in band with college band.
And again, that comes back to the college wanting to kind of be able to shape your own educative experience just the way you would like it. Of course, there is a caveat in that, is you've got to be doing the work in the first place. Nothing's presented on a plate without it being two-way traffic. But I mean, so it's probably worth saying that.
I mean, but even as a first year, if we think someone wants to make that transfer over at the end of the first year, we spend a lot of time in my lessons or in cornet class going over trumpet repertoire and transposition to get you up to speed. As you can yourself, you can go to trumpet class and do the same as the current first year batch. So you'll be ready for it if that's what you choose. If you just want to do it for an experience rather than transfer completely, we still can include cornet in mine and Richard's lessons, trumpet in those lessons and in class. So just because you're registered as a cornet player doesn't mean your end of year recital you can't do some work on trumpet, piccolo, flugel, whatever you choose. It's all there. It's all for grabs. It's great.
Great stuff. Is that a good answer, Nadia? Is that okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Good. Anyone else got any questions?
I'm all right. I'm all right with that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's. Roger, can you think of anything else we need to? Any other information that's relevant at this point?
Not really. I think if anybody's got any questions that they don't want to ask on air, there's always ways to find us. So they can find any of us. I mean, they can go through Hammonds and get hold of Zoe. They can find most of the bands in Yorkshire and Lancashire and find Tom. As he works his way through them, heading for the top, he's treading on the heads as he goes by. and you can always find me. I'm always free. And yeah, get messages to us. Give us a call. We'll answer any questions. It's definitely open. This is definitely not scripted, and we'll tell you the truth as we add on this. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Well, there's no real point otherwise, is there?
No, you don't last.
Ellie, have you got another question?
Yeah, it's just a quick one. How many hours do we have, designated contact hours do we actually have per se week, in a week?
Right. So that in some ways that's not an easy question, because it's kind of as an undergraduate and somebody correct me if I'm wrong. You get instantly assigned 27 hours first study lessons. But then there's 2 more on top of that you can choose how you want to use those. Am I making sense? Yes, I think so. Right, yeah. And they can be then with another teacher, a trumpet teacher, or a natural trumpet teacher, or a percussionist like Zoe did, or however you want to do that. Or you could take your cornet and go and play for a cello teacher. I mean, it's you've got to go through a process and apply for it, but you can have lessons with somebody else. And kind of broaden your horizons in that way, so that there's a kind of, or you can choose to use those extra 2 hours with your normal tutor. So there's a bit of flexibility in that way. There's the group classes, which don't quite happen every week, but they're regular, and then there's obviously there's the chamber music and the ensembles that happen. One thing that might be worth me saying, talking about regular activity, and it's often a query that comes in with the RNCM brass band activity, is that does the RNCM brass band rehearse every single week? And the answer to that is no. And some people sometimes go, what? No, why not? Yes, as I said earlier on in the 11:30 session, we have 4 or 5 performance projects a year, but we want to provide gaps in between those projects, so you can go off and do intensive chamber music projects. So you can go off and spend time with intensive projects with your own bands, go off and spend time learning natural trumpet. So there's gaps in between the studies, so you're not enveloped in this mass of brass band, and that all goes. I keep coming back to that statement we made at the beginning about this idea of broadening your horizons. If you haven't got those opportunities to do that, then that's actually a bit of a problem for us. So it is regular throughout the year, but it's not a kind of constant activity. So you've got gaps in between to focus on other things as well. So does that make sense? Have I answered your question, Ellie? I'm not sure. Did I? I did do. Okay. But so I think that's often a question that comes up as well. Oh, amazingly, there's somebody joining us right now.
Oh, lovely.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, no. Kurumi. We're not far away from. Sorry if I've said your name right or wrong. We're not far away from finishing this session, so you've only just joined us. You can come on camera if you'd like, or if you don't want to. I don't want to finish this session in case you've got specific questions that you wanted to ask myself or Roger Webster. I'm guessing if you've joined this session that you... It's difficult to know, isn't it? Okay. Any other questions before I've got one little video that I'm going to play for you to finish the session of the band working with in rehearsal with Nicholas Childs, and then I'll close it up actually. But just to reiterate what Roger says, if there are any questions, then you'll get my both mine and Roger's emails from the RNCM website. You just Google David Thornton. Oh, that person's left, so maybe they were in the wrong place. Google David Thornton RNCM, or the same with Roger's name, and you'll see a college email come straight up. Ask away. Don't when you're making decisions about where you're going to audition, where you want to study, information is absolutely key. Get all of the information. By all means, talk to the students, and that is key because these years are going to shape your future in some ways. So in a lot of ways, actually. So get all the information, and then a decision is good. I hope that's a good thing to say. Last chance for questions. Stick your hand up. Anybody? No. Okay. We'll go into this final video, and then we'll.
One small thing, Dave.
Yes.
If my phone. If any of the Cornet players want a sort of taster session, just a quick lesson. See, we're in lockdown. When I'm in my house, I'm available anytime, no charge to that. It gets me out of gardening and painting. So, yeah, please phone for a lesson.
and that's the same. That's the same with me and the Euphonium players. No problem with organising that. And for the tenor horn players that are on, we can put you in touch with Owen, and that's actually makes sense. It's something we definitely encourage. Yeah. And I'd imagine the tenor horn players already have some kind of contact with Owen because he's everywhere, isn't he? You go to a youth band session, Owen's there. So so there you go. No problems. And don't be backwards in coming forwards with those kind of things. Fantastic. Okay, let's have a look at this little video. So this is a piece, two very, very short sections from The Age of Kings by Edward Gregson, and this was in rehearsal with Nicholas Childs, probably about 18 months ago, something like that. I'm hoping this works. Here we go. So that's a little bit of Age of Kings by Edward Gregson. Great piece. If you don't know that, look that up. And that is the RNCM Concert Hall, which is a shame that you don't get to see that on a normal open day. Of course you would do, but it's a lovely hall to play in and recently renovated. So there we go. Okay, last chance for questions. No, okay, good. Thank you very much for being with us. I hope you've got everything that you hoped from the day, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Tom, Zoe, and Dan, and of course to Roger. Thanks, Roger.
Yeah, no problem.
Yep.
Oh, good stuff. Right, I'll close it all down. See you later. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye now.